Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's another Leeds United latest episode with myself, Stephen Brown, and joining me as ever to discuss everything to do with the Whites. It is Mr. Jason Booker. And we've got a lot to talk about, as always, with Leeds United. We've got so many transfer rumours flying about. We've got so many names to get through. We're going to give you our take on that. Plus, we're looking at some bigger scale issues as well. So, obviously, we know it's a slightly changed recruitment that we've got this summer, the people in charge, and we're going to have a look at the two main figures of that, especially Adam Underwood as well, and assessing how he might do in the role. And, you know, he's been in the club, he's come through at the club, so how far his reach going to go, we're going to get into all that. We're going to have a good chat on that. And just general chit-chat about Leeds. If you're watching along, get your comments in on anything that we're talking about, like the video, and also subscribe to the channel as well, and make sure you catch up with every episode myself and Jay are doing at the moment. We've got loads going on the channel as well. Check that out. We had our roundtable show last week, and we've got loads of clips from that flying about as well, including an interesting little chit-chat about Leeds United moving away from their ground as well. So do check out that debate as well. Fascinating stuff with the boys there. But we're going to get into it. Jason, first of all, how are we doing, my friend? It was officially the last game of the season at the weekend. It was the Champions League final. My God, what a game. Football exhibition. Never seen a Champions League final like it in my life. Just beautiful to watch, wasn't it? A team so in sync and on fire. Every player so hungry. Wingers playing with so much freedom. A glorious way to kind of end the season, really.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like a Champions League final, did it?
No.
The gulf in class between the two teams on the day, and I know some people got a little bit frosty about saying that it'd have been a better game if it had been Barcelona that had ended up getting to the final. A couple of them in our group had the same kind of reaction to it as well, and it were only from a place of wanting to see a competitive game, because it wasn't competitive. It really wasn't. After the first goal went in, it never looked like being anything else. But you're absolutely spot on. I mean, the spectacle was an absolute joy to watch. The football that was on display, the press was sensational. It was a little bit like watching third versus sixth in the playoffs. You know, like the golfing class between them two teams is usually, you don't usually see a Champions League final like that. You usually see a competitive game that is one or two goals either way, usually, don't you? Or like big comebacks, or like, you know, spectacles of thrill and excitement. This was just a masterclass dominance. And, you know, Enrique deserves so much credit, doesn't he? Like, what a job he's done considering what he's been through. And yeah, and it just shows that the team is far more valuable than the individuals that sometimes can be put together in these sides. The look of that PSG side is irrecognizable in comparison to Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe being up there. So yeah, just a wonderful spectacle to watch. And I had the joy of watching it with my 10-year-old, who will probably never forget it. Like, he was so into it, it was untrue. It was brilliant. It was a wholesome moment for me, really. So yeah, I loved it, mate. Absolutely loved it.
That'll be in with all the PSG gear now, won't it? You'll have to stock up.
He wouldn't dare now. That's it. He wouldn't dare. Like, he knows better. Like, there's only one team in this house. They both my lads walk around wearing Leeds kit like all weekend when they're here, because they're just kind of looking for dads.
They don't get it otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And look, I know there's, obviously the debates about PSG and sports washing and all that. We know that whole thing rages on. There's still, obviously spent a lot of money, accumulating players this season, but there's no superstars there, and that's the key difference. And it just feels a million miles away from that kind of horrible ego club that was there a few years ago. So yeah, it was just lovely to see.
Let's not kid ourselves either. Sports washing is what they now they've coined the phrase at for these teams that have got Saudi Arabian owners, and the same is happening in boxing and the situation of what's happening with quite a lot of the boxing, the big fights going over there, because that's where the money is. But the facts are that's just the time that it is now. When Manchester United used to dominate, they had the most money then. Real Madrid with the Galacticos, they had the most money then. Like, throughout all of certainly my life, 35 years, there's always been money that dominates the sport of football, and now it's just it coming from a slightly different source, and everybody wants to kind of cry about it. And that's why I never got that upset when Red Bull got involved, because I just think if you want to be successful within the top levels of football in world football, you need a certain amount of dirty money, unfortunately. So, like, if you're going to support the sport, kind of get on with it. And I think it filters all the way through the leagues as well. You know, we were having this conversation on the pod the other week, weren't we, about whether the heart and soul and the passion is more in non-league than it is in the football. And let's face it, like the money dominates them lower leagues as well. Stockport, Wrexham, both gone through the divisions recently, both with mad amount of money. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because, you know, hearing the lads talk about the non-league stuff as well, and you know, it's amazing how much comes back to money. You know, they were on about it yesterday, you know, the fact that clubs need money and no club's self-sustainable or anything like that. It's all benefactors, isn't it? So yeah, it's a fascinating debate, and it's gonna rage on. Getting to Leeds United stuff, then Jay, obviously transfer rumours are just, I mean, it's just crazy, you know, it's picking up speed, isn't it? We're going to get to a few, and obviously if there's any you want us to talk about in the chat as well, drop that in there as well. Gavin, hi mate, evening guys. No signings until July 1st, it seems, new accounts, etc. Yeah, I mean that's going to be you know, a big thing as well, isn't it? People or clubs, I should say, rather, pushing the transfer dealings through past that deadline, you know, just to make a healthier account. I mean, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, all these kind of things that clubs are having to do to try and figure out this kind of PSR web. I mean, it's so tricky, isn't it?
It's nonsense, mate. It's an absolute nonsense. Yeah. We were talking in the group yesterday about Flecken going to Leverkusen and then Brentford signing Kelleher, and the reduction in fee that we've seen there. And, you know, Gaz were making the point that Liverpool have done Leverkusen a favour to, what was the reason now? There was another deal that was then attached to it. I can't remember the route now. But anyway, basically, all of them transfer fees that have gone on between Flecken to Liverpool and then Kelleher to Brentford have been all kind of fudged and poked and moved around. Oh, it's the Wirtz deal. It's the Wirtz deal. That's what it is. The Wirtz and deal then being attached to it. All of this money is being allowed to move around in a certain way. So they've sold Brentford, Kelleher cheap to allow Leverkusen to buy Flecken cheaper, to then all fudge their PSR figures in the way that they need to. And it's a nonsense, mate. They need to scrap the lot. They need to scrap the lot, because all he's doing is he's making these nonsense stuff where people and clubs are waiting until after a certain date. And you know, we saw it last year with Newcastle having to sell the midfielder to Nottingham Forest.
Minter wasn't there as well?
Well, Minter went to Brighton, but they also sold the
young
Elliot
lad,
Anderson,
well.
Elliot Anderson to Forest for 40 million quid. Like what? Like that? And then they bought back from Forest a fourth choice goalkeeper that they didn't want, and it's just a nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense. And then you know, Lou were telling us about them having to now re-sign Tim Krul, Freddie Woodman, and somebody else to make up the English quarter. Like, so they're going to have 5 goalkeepers on in the reserves that are never going to play, all to meet this homegrown quarter. Just scrap all of these rules that can be fudged around. And you know, like, if clubs are going to get into financial issues, they're going to get into financial issues regardless of whether these rules and whatnot are in place. You know, we've proven over the years that fit a proper person's test isn't worth its salt anyway, haven't we? You know, Cellino got put in charge, and other owners have come into other clubs. Look at what's happening at Cardiff right now. Look at what's happening at Sheffield Wednesday. You know, there's other examples throughout the Football League. It's a nonsense, mate. I know I'm rattling and waffling a little bit here, but some of this, especially with the FFP stuff, is just absolute nonsense.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, we obviously are probably one of the most notorious examples of going through a financial crisis as a club. And I feel like we just took our medicine. We went, okay, we sell all our best players, we get relegated, we go into administration. It affects the community. There's businesses that never got, you know, paid back. There's loads of kind of furor from it. And 16 years it took to get back to the top division. But it's like, well, we paid the price. Whereas, now, I mean, every club's got practically a billionaire benefactor. So they're not going to go into financial ruin at that level. It just doesn't seem to kind of match up with the actual situation. It feels like they're reacting to kind of, what happened to Bury? Well, that's just not going to apply to Premier League teams. That's just not simply going to happen. And it's funny about Kelleher, because I didn't even cotton on to that. But, I mean, they were talking about 40 million. Last week, there was Liverpool. Oh, no. Liverpool want 40 million. Not going to, they're not going to go below 40 million. And then you're like, Brighton.
They were never getting 40 million, though.
No. Brentford have signed him for 12 million or something, and then up to 18 with that. You're like, how on earth did that happen? But then when you look at that accounting situation, you got, okay, fair enough. So who are we going to sell to Rangers for 30 million?
Yeah, I think there is some fudging going on. I also think that Kelleher has a bit of an inflated high price because he's Liverpool's second keeper and he's done okay. Like, we don't know what he's going to be like facing shots every week on the regular with half the quality of defence in front of him. It's very, I'm going to say, quote unquote, easy being Liverpool's second choice goalkeeper. Like, in terms of perspective, it's a very, very different job that he's going to have at Brentford and it would have been at Leeds. So I don't kind of subscribe to this idea that he should have been 25, 30 million quid at all. I think the fee that they've kind of settled on is in and around right, if I'm honest. I think he is a good keeper, but I think there is an unknown with him as well. It's not like he's been first choice in the Premier League for all this time. So, I think it's an interesting one.
Yeah, like Douglas says here, 40 million or 20 million for a keeper who hardly played over the last 5 years.
That's exactly my point.
Daft. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's have a look at some names and see what we think. Obviously, we had him on the thumbnail. It feels a little bit outdated now, but Nick Pope obviously is one that's been gearing up, and we've talked a little bit about Nick Pope before. It sounds as if there might be more kind of to be done there. Obviously, we're waiting to see what Newcastle do with Trafford at Burnley. But I mean, like we've said before, Jason, very straightforward. He would be a top class signing when he would be perfect, really, I think, for what we need. Experience, just a bloody good goalkeeper, fundamentally. All right, not great with his feet. We've talked to Lou in the group. He said, he's a Newcastle fan, not great with his feet. We know that, but, look, it's going to be a different ball game next year. Are we going to be that passing around at the back team, or are we going to have, world-class players pressing us? It's going to be a different ball game, and you just need someone like Nick Pope between the sticks, don't you?
I mean, he kept Burnley in the division for like 2 seasons single-handedly, didn't he? And I think he's proven himself. 10 caps for England. He's a top pro. Been around a long time. He wouldn't struggle with the pressure of playing for Leeds United. He's played for a big club in Newcastle himself. Like I said, made them appearances for England. I think in terms of a shot stopper, I don't think you could hope to get a better fit. And I think we have to prepare ourselves for the fact that we're going to need his keeper to keep us in some games this season. That's just the way that the Premier League is for the teams in and around the bottom 5, 6. So I think he'd be an absolute spot-on shrewd move. I mean, I don't really subscribe to 10, 15 million quid, if I'm honest. Not that I don't think he's worth that, but there's zero resale value in Nick Pope because of his age. I think he's 33 now. So I would worry from that perspective. But at the same time, if you get 3 good years out of Nick Pope and he keeps you in the Premier League for 10 million quid, it's worth every penny, innit? And 10 million quid really on the face of it, it's probably a bit of a splash in the ocean, considering what we've heard over the last few days that we're going to be putting towards a centre-back, a centre midfielder and a striker. So with all that, I think it just makes a lot of sense. You'd feel super comfortable with him in behind the back line. And you know what? We get 5 to 10 million for Meslier. I guess we would. I still think we would. And we keep Darlow as the number 2. We're in pretty good stead there, aren't we? I think it'd be a great, comfortable, reassuring first signing.
I'll be happy with that. Michael's pouring a little bit of cold water on this. So he says, I'm hearing Nick Pope is not keen on the Leeds United move, although it might be newspaper talk.
I can't understand why you wouldn't be.
Is it playing for Newcastle, and then is it a bit of a drop-off coming to a team that's potentially fighting for their lives to get back up?
It depends on what he's been told at Newcastle, doesn't it? Because if he's been told that he's not going to play and they're going to replace him with Trafford or another keeper, which for all intents and purposes it sounds like they're going to do, I can't imagine that Nick Pope would want to see out the rest of his career sitting on the bench at Newcastle. And he's not. I can't imagine that he'd be given his career path. Bear in mind, he came through non-league, did Nick Pope. And he then played at Charlton, and then he played for Burnley for several years before getting a big move to Newcastle. I can't imagine he'd be the kind of character that he'd turn his nose up at playing for Leeds United. I can't see that. Not if he's been promised a first-team berth at Leeds. So, no, I just don't see that. I would struggle to believe that.
Yeah. Let's just kind of wrap up the Calvin Phillips stuff as well, because a bit of cold water's been poured on that as well. That's been downplayed. I don't know. I haven't read too much on that, but I don't know if it's a source or there seems to be some effort to kind of distance Leeds away from Calvin Phillips today when it was building up. It felt like it was, something was going to happen there. I, for one, am fine with that not happening. I really am. I'm really dubious about Phillips in terms of where he's at now and what he can offer. It's a bit of a mad one as well, because it'd be like Man City paying, or we'd be paying Man City the fee, but then they'd just be giving it to Phillips to like pay out his contract.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nutty one, isn't it? But I don't know. I feel like, and it's funny when you hear all these rumours, I'm like, it's almost too obvious for the 49ers. I mean, the way they've done business, I just can't imagine it's going to be one of these kind of long-standing rumours of a player joining that actually ends up happening. But yeah. I for one, I'm not too disappointed that the KP rumour seems to be getting put to bed.
I understand the merits of both sides of it. If I'm honest, I think it's one where if your opinion is a bit more emotional and you're on the side of the KP that we used to have, and he's a Leeds boy, and he's nearly 100 appearances in the Premier League, played all them times for England, all the rest of it. I can get on board with why that would make a lot of sense to you. I also can get on board with the fact that he's had 3 pretty treacherous years. He's injury plagued, and he always has been injury plagued. Even at Leeds, he was susceptible to injuries, partly down to the way that he plays, partly down to the way that he tends to have a lot of issues with his knees. I know he's got an Achilles problem now. The fee that would be attached, the contract that likely be, would be attached to it as well. I do think if you had a fully fit Calvin Phillips, I think there'd be a lot of sense to it, because I do think that he will likely only rediscover any of his best form probably with us. I think he's going to have... if he doesn't come back to us, which I don't think he will, and I do think for Leeds overall that would be the right decision, I do worry for him, because I do worry where this next step in his career is going to take him. Is he just going to sit on the City sidelines for a year and waste another year of his career? I could see that happening. So yeah, it's a real tricky one, is that. But I'm a bit impartial, if I'm honest with you. I'd have been a little bit of a fair weather fan on this one. If it had happened, I'd have been gassed and I'd have been excited. And if it doesn't happen, I also don't care. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel about it. Like, yesterday we heard it was pretty much guaranteed he was going to sign. Then it was pretty much guaranteed he wasn't going to sign, all in the same day. And I kind of went from, all right, yeah, I'm kind of excited about it, to, all right, I'm not really bothered. Really, really quickly. So, yeah, I think... I mean, me and Gavin always seem to disagree. I think it's too easy to just say that he only had good form under Marcelo. Like, he was, in my opinion, he was always incorrectly categorized as a player. Marcelo was the first coach that Leeds United let him down. Yeah, that it's not the other way. Like, he was clearly, and we saw this under Marcelo, a number 4. And we'd never seen that under any management before. I mean, Christensen played him as basically the attacking midfielder. So I think it's unfair to kind of just categorize Calvin as he can only do it under Marcelo. And we saw him do, a fair good amount of work for England in a double pivot. We know his capabilities. I think he's a massive confidence player, Calvin. And I think he needed the home beacon. I understand why he took the move to City. I think it was the right thing for his family and their family and their family and their family and everything that he achieved and the Champions League and all the rest of it. But I think if in years to come, I think he'll look back and think, I probably should have just stayed at Leeds for my career.
Yeah.
I think he is a specific kind of niche case where he would have been better just having the 15 years of his career all at Leeds United, regardless of the jewels that came with the move. So, but yeah, you can't blame him either.
No, I do agree with that. I mean, this is what made me nervous as well. As Michael said here, KP has yet another injury issue, won't be able to play until late August, September at the earliest, meaning he misses all the pre-season. I was like, oh, you shudder at the thought of if he didn't have a pre-season as well on top of all the issues. I mean, it just gets harder.
Give me James Milner for that niche kind of come back home vibe. Like, I'm all for the emotional side of being a Leeds fan, and we do have some darlings, don't we, that we'd have loved to have seen back over the year. I can't lie to you, and I know this might stoke up some of the chat, but I'd have been all over the Alan Smith rumours when we were in the Championship.
I was as well.
I was all
I would have loved
like,
the idea of it.
Bring him back, let the homecoming happen. Like, I would have been. So I'm all for that, and I think James Milner for one season in our promotion, in our relegation kind of battle that we're going to be in this season, help keep us up, the experience, everything that he is. I think he's one of the Premier League greats. I think James Milner literally goes down as a top 10 Premier League great, and I'm not kidding. I think he's that level of good, and the fact that he's still capable of even playing Premier League football at 39-year-old is insane. So yeah, I'd be all up. Bring me James. Bring me James Milner.
Gavin, Milner is 40 in January. It don't matter. Bring him in.
No, but Gav will be like, oh, we've got to move forward. We shouldn't be looking back. Like, I know Gavin. I know how he's going to play this already. Like, I'm not just saying sign James Milner because he came through at Leeds. There's a lot of value to James Milner being in and around this squad. It's a very, very young squad. There's a reason that Brighton have offered him another 1-year deal. They're not mugs. They're not stupid. Like, you know what I mean? So this is a player that's a serious, winner, Premier League winner, multiple Premier League winner, Champions League winner. James Milner is a baller, and he could still offer us so much for a year, with then maybe the promise to be a coach the year after.
Yeah, indeed. Skip, I just want to raise this one with you, Jason. Would you be disappointed if we don't bring any players in during the first part of the transfer window? So as we know, transfer window's open for like 10 days, closes, and then it's open again 20th of June or something. Now, as we mentioned at the start of the show, obviously a lot of clubs are going to be looking to finalise deals past the June 30th deadline for PSR reasons. So I think that's definitely going to hold things up. Of course, it would have been lovely, to get something done, maybe Solomon or something, signed early on. Will I be disappointed? I won't be disappointed. I think it's just, it's a case of, at the minute, I just feel trusting in what the club are doing. So I'm relaxed about it. I think with this kind of extra time in the window, maybe it would have been nice to do something. But I'm not too fussed. As long as kind of business gets going, certainly from July, I think July we've got to be really kind of getting those deals in. Because like we said, me and Jason, when we did the squad review, we only had 5 starters for the Premier League out of the squad. So there's a lot to do. Jason, would you be concerned if we don't get anything done in this initial kind of window?
Not really, if I'm honest with you. I think, when are the boys expected to return back from pre-season? I'm guessing that's July anyway. I think they'll be probably missing for the best part of all of June. Some might start filtering back in the last week or so. But at the end of the day, like, this transfer window nonsense that's going on is all to fit the Club World Club Football Club bloody Mickey Mouse trophy where the winner gets 100 million quid. Like,
100 million quid? I didn't even realise that. I was like, what the hell?
Hence why Real Madrid have paid 10 million quid for Trent, because they don't have a right back on a free transfer, the most expensive free transfer of all time. It's mental. But yeah, I can't, like, the facts are, regardless of whether we sign anybody in June or not, these deals are going to be happening in the background. And if it doesn't happen officially on paper, just because, Fabrizio doesn't announce it, doesn't mean that it isn't already set in stone for the 1st of July. So I'm really good. Like, this isn't going to be the same as when we were making signings on deadline day in August. We might still stay alive for opportunities that come up towards the end of the window, but we're shopping in a completely different market now. These players are going to want to join Leeds United. We're going to be first choice for a lot of these players that are going to be signing. We're going to be making most of them, I think, in preparation for game week 1. We're going to need to be ready to go. So I'm not worried about it at all, if I'm honest. Not a shred.
No, absolutely. A couple of other names that came up then, Davie Selke. So he's due to be on a free transfer, netted 23 goals in 33 games last season with Hamburg. And then they've just kind of stalled. Doesn't look as if he's going to stay. 30 years of age, interesting kind of track record. He's never really kind of cracked it in the Bundesliga. One of those names probably doesn't get the pulses racing. You wonder, you're always going to think of the Farke thing with the Bundesliga. Is there something going on there? A couple other things as well. Buendía, that one doesn't seem to be going away as well. Apparently he's open to the move of coming to Leeds. And an exciting one as well is Igor Paixao. I think that's how you say it. Maybe not. Who's plays for Feyenoord, had an incredible season last year, 18 goals, 14 assists in 47 appearances. A lot of people really excited about that, I've got to confess. I have no idea about him at all. I've heard the name, but I've not watched him, so I can't say. But like everything, when I see other people getting excited, I'm like, oh, right, okay, I'll have a little look on YouTube. And yeah, he looks bloody good. Any of those you want to comment on, Jason, your general thoughts on those?
Yeah, well, yeah, just to confess to everybody watching, Brownie sent me the itinerary over for the show earlier on today, and I gave it about 30 seconds worth of reading because I was really busy and thought I'll make sure that I research on everything before the show, and then I had no time to do any research. But I do know a bit about Paixao. He's a very, very good winger. Very exciting. Does give me Sinistera vibes, and I think that's because we signed him from Feyenoord as well. I think it was Feyenoord. It was definitely from the Dutch league. He's small, diminutive, nippy. Interesting that we're so heavily linked with a winger, considering the fact that we've all kind of said with Solomon we don't need a winger. So maybe there's Solomon chat in the background that we're not aware of, and that's maybe moving in a different direction. I would really like to see Mano Solomon come in. I'll be disappointed if that one goes somewhere else, because I just think we know what we're getting. He's ready-made. He's a Premier League player. His fitness is proven. Fans will be buzzing with that coming back, and I think there's resale potential there. If we, give him a good year in the Premier League, I think he could be looking at a real player there. And I also think if we don't sign him, I think he ends up at another Premier League team, and I don't want that either. I think I can see him going to Everton or Wolves or someone that's going to be maybe even Brentford. Brentford are looking like they're going to lose one or two of their better players in them attacking positions. He could be a pretty good replacement for Brian Mbeumo, as an example. So yeah, I'd be disappointed if we ended up losing him. But again, trust the 49ers to get it right if they go in a different direction. The lad from the Bundesliga 2. Yeah. I have heard of him before, and he's very much one of them that kind of does it in the Bundesliga 2 and doesn't do it in the Premier League. So it'd be a bit of a worrying one for me. But they're not comparable. I mean, we're hoping that Altenac is going to have a great season after one good season in the Championship and then a career in the Bundesliga 2. So again, I think sometimes it can be about the profiles fitting and matching. And again, you just kind of have to put reassurance and trust in the 49ers and Daniel Farke to get it right. But you're right, it isn't going to be one that sets the world alight on paper. But you never know. You literally never know with some of these. And then who else have you mentioned? Buendía is one that's never going to go away, is it? And I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. If he's fit, he's the kind of player that can really contribute to keeping us up. The question is it going to be fit? And how are you going to recruit around him if you then sign him? Do you then sign another 10 just in case? Do you go with Brendan Aronson as the backup? What does that look like? Do you trust Joe Perreault to play at the 10 with another 9 in front if Brendan's not doing it and Buendia's injured? You're going to have to recruit around it. And that worries me a little bit. I don't know what his fitness was like from January to the end of the season. I know he didn't play for Leverkusen as much as what he would have wanted to, but I don't know if that was due to fitness or due to just team selection or whatever. So yeah, I think it's a interesting one, but it makes a lot of sense, mate. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, indeed. And this is kind of a point I wanted to get to as well, and I thought it might be a little interesting talk as well, is because obviously we're data driven now in our recruitment. That's kind of public knowledge. We are data driven, and it's actually fascinating to see how many times in a transfer article you'll see Leeds and Brighton mentioned in the same breath. And someone tweeted earlier about, that's a good sign of the job our recruitment team's doing. If these rumours are true, that we seem to be, hunting in the same territory. And I've got to say, I agree with that. I guess the only issue is, Jason, if you are competing with the Brighton and even Brentford, we're probably going to be bottom of the pile, aren't we?
I think against Brighton, as much as it pains me to say it, I think we'd probably be second choice, because I think of their structure, another good season under the manager, the style of football that they play. I think there's probably some credence to that, in that the thing is, for these players, they know that Leeds are probably going to be within a relegation battle for the first season, maybe 2, maybe even 3, where the likelihood is that Brighton are probably not going to be in one. I do think Brentford are probably going to be susceptible to be a little bit of fear this summer for players signing. Thomas Frank expected to move. Very, very likely that a big job's going to come along for him at some point, and he's going to up sticks. Looks like they're going to lose the majority of their best players. They lost Tony last season, and now they're going to lose Mbuemo by the looks of it, and Visser as well. So, it'll be interesting to see, because I've always thought that Brentford will eventually end up back in the bottom 3 at some point. Natural law of progression, the size of the club that they can be, the laws of attraction, eventually it's going to go wrong there, that the players don't quite fit, or the manager goes and a few kind of cogs just work in the wrong way, and they'll eventually end up back in and around the trapdoor. So yeah, I think we are right to still be looking in that market though, Brownie, because we need to try and push ourselves to the extreme of our potential. People being stupid saying Benjamin Šeško, or I saw somebody say Ekitike the other day in another stream, and I'm like, what are you on about? People saying, we should go for this player, or we should go for that player. It's ludicrous. Some of them. Trafford, I saw the other day, what world are you living in? These players are signing for top 6, clubs. So we have to know where we are right now. And I think even the ceiling of that could be unrealistic, which are these players that are linked with Brighton and Brentford. So if we can push 1 or 2 of them over the line, that could be the difference in us staying up. So I think we're shopping in the right market is basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to bring up a little graphic as well, which is going to kind of point us in the direction of which clubs are kind of in a positive PSR place in terms of what they're able to spend, and where others might be struggling a little bit more. Hope you guys can kind of see that on there. But if you kind of look at who's in the plus, obviously you got Chelsea. I mean, we know they're up to all sorts to try and kind of exaggerate their profit. And,
is that what the asterisk is?
Yeah, exactly. They're just, exactly. Man City as well. But you look at Brighton are in an exceptionally strong place. They spent 200 million last summer, biggest spenders, and they're in a really positive place again. You'll also see up there Brentford as well, although they're in a minus, they're not too far down. Obviously, our promotion rivals Sunderland as well, who haven't spent more than 10 million in a season for God knows how long. So they're going to be in a strong position. Wolves, obviously, selling a couple of their best players, they're going to get even higher up the chart than that. When you start getting further down the list, you're looking at Everton minus 53, Leeds. We're hurt by those 2 years in the Championship. There's no doubt about it. But, look who's next to us, the league champions there as well. Bournemouth, going to be big questions about Bournemouth. I say, obviously, they've made one big sale already, but could be under a lot of pressure. And Aston Villa, I mean, they've got a lot to do this summer. But, I mean, looking at that in terms of, if we are following a kind of Brighton-Brentford model, I mean, it's just, you look at that chart and straight away, it's sustainable, isn't it? And it's picking up these players and developing these players. And, if that's what we're doing, if we're data-driven that way, I'm 100% for it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels scary, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
you're going to see players come out of the woodwork that we've never heard of, that, you know, we would like the comfort of a Premier League proven player that just instantly kind of gratifies that chip in our mind that says, oh shit, is this going to go wrong? You know what I mean? Like, that's the truth, isn't it? But Brentford fans are all likely been exactly the same about some of these players that we've mentioned. You know, they're data driven as well. In Buemo, you know, the money ball kind of aspect that they work around is all about signing a player for low money based on facts and figures and statistics, and then selling them on for big profit. And they've done exceptionally well through doing that. So, you know, Brighton are exactly the same as well. Nobody would have even heard of Alexis McAllister before they sign him, you know, and look at the player that he's gone on to be, not just for Liverpool, but previously at Brighton as well. A brilliant player. And there's others, isn't there? There's several. There's catalogues of them. So, I think we have to trust that the process is going to go right. We have to trust that they get the sales right as well. You know, I'm as excited to kind of see that. And that sounds really hollow because, you know, these boys just got us promoted, but I think it's a bigger part of the journey. You know, if the likes of Mateo Joseph have to go, Pascal Schroik have to go, you know, maybe even some that I like even more than them. You know, I don't want to see Altanaka go because I really want to see him given a go in the Premier League. But if a £30 million offer comes in for Al and then we can replace him with somebody with better credentials for the Premier League, maybe a little bit more physical, you know, and they have the physical statistics to keep it in it. Because all I care about now that all the dust has settled is us staying up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's going to be nerve-wracking. I expect the team to look very different come the first game of the season. I do.
Yeah, I mean, I like I mentioned, you know, I thought we were fair in our kind of squad debrief, and we only had 5 starters. And you know, as it stands for me, that squad gets relegated. And you know, I can appreciate what Gavin's saying about sentimentality and all that kind of thing. And we had a bit of that the first run, didn't we? Where players should have been moved on. You know, new players should have been brought in. It should have been refreshed. You know, I'm certainly talking about, you know, you look at Ayling, you look at Bamford in that kind of final year, you know, those kind of players. And it was just not done, you know, and whether they didn't have the backing to be able to do it to the extent that was needed, I'm not sure. And I think we are going to see it more ruthless this time. And I think what we've got to really look at as well is that parade that team had, those players, you know, had that time with the fans to enjoy. That's a great way to finish your Leeds career, because that means you can, for the next 40 years, rock up at the club, like do BBC Radio Leeds, do LUTV. Fans are going to love you. It's just a positive place to, you know, there's nothing wrong with it ending at that point. You know, it's like, you know, with someone like Firpo, who has managed to kind of do a complete 180 on his reputation. You know, he's been incredible numbers this season. I don't want him anywhere near a starting left back position for Leeds United in the Premier League. A discussion about whether he can be in the squad, that's different. But you know, I think it's going to be pretty cutthroat. I think we are going to see, like you say, a lot of changes going forward. And kind of one of the things I wanted to get into as well is kind of what's happened at board level, what's happened with the team. Obviously, we know Angus Kinnear's left, and we know that he's taken Nick Hammond with him, who was a huge part of the recruitment and the successful recruitment Leeds had over the last couple of years. So basically what's happened is Robbie Evans has come in as managing director. So there's not going to be a CEO anymore. He's coming in as managing director. And the big role really is Adam Underwood to sporting director. You know, and it's an amazing kind of rise to prominence for Underwood, really, because you know, apparently he's really impressed Marathe and Kinnear when he was there over the past few years. You know, he's literally built himself up from the academy. You know, he's been there for 9 years. And now he's got the top dog role, sporting director. Everything's going to run through this guy in terms of recruitment. Did you ever meet him, by the way, when you were in the league role? Did you?
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you were talking.
What were your impressions of him?
It was only fleeting. At one of the meetings at Thorpe Arch, seemed like a really clued on guy. You know, like you say, it has been a bit of a astronomical rise, really, because, you know, to come from an academy role up to this kind of level within the club, but he was really well thought of. Carried himself really, really well, mate, is all I can really say. And I do think that he had improved things in that area of the club as well. Bear in mind, the S show that it was in, like it were a bit of a mess. You know what I mean? You know, the scouts previously to me being there weren't even paid. It was, you know, a bit of a mess really. So he just carried himself really, really well. And I'm sure again, 49ers are no mugs, are they? They wouldn't be putting him into this position if they didn't think he was the man for the job. So I think it's a shrewd move.
Yeah. What about in terms of, you know, because he's been at Leeds all this time, you know, whereas someone like Nick Hammond, he'd been here, he'd been there, older, connections, this kind of thing. Is there any part of you that's worried about this structural change in terms of recruitment? Because obviously we've talked about how key it is. We've talked about how good the recruitment has been, but is it going to look different now? I mean, how worried are you about that? Because that's the only kind of thing I have in my head is like, okay, this is their first real test as this kind of group. You know, how are they going to do? You know, how are they going to do? Because it's, you know, it's different people now to what it was.
I mean, it's the same worry that we had when the 49ers first took over for that window. We got Greta Steinson out of nowhere. We got Nick Hammond in pretty much out of nowhere. We kind of threw it together, didn't we? If you remember how that kind of summer went, and then all of a sudden we started seeing the likes of Ethan Ampadu come through the door, and you know others that kind of supplied that job, that role that we needed at the time. Glenn Kamara, you know, who else? Joel Perreault came in that window. Joe Rodon. On loan. Who else did we get? Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the more successful ones within that squad. But you know, we put together the best squad that we potentially could do at fairly short notice, and we all have really, you know, heralded them with their recruitment credentials throughout their time at Leeds. They've all nearly been successful. Pretty much every signing has been somewhat successful for Leeds, and that was fashioned together pretty quickly. So the 49ers again knew what they wanted and they got it right. And it seems to me that over the last 2 years, they've been now building to this point where they can hand over from Nick Hammond and Greta Steins. And I know Steinson's still with the club doing a slightly different role, but they've been able to now hand over to the structure that they really want. So given the fact that they were able to fashion that together and get the recruitment so spot on at short notice, right back at the beginning, they've had 2 years to plan this now. I'm really confident that they've got in place what they want. And again, just like, you know, if we're going to refer back to Brighton and Brentford, they would have been nervous when they started their process and the way that they looked at it. But you have to start it somewhere, don't you? So yeah, it's going to be a bit scary and a bit nerve-wracking, and it could go horribly wrong, but you have to base it on the information that we've got. And so far, the decisions that they've made in these positions, including the manager, including everybody that they've employed, you know, there's been now a natural progression to Angus' career moving on. All of the recruitment that comes through the door, and I'd even argue the one that everybody labels and throws back is Jed Spence. I'd even argue that was a good signing, really. Everybody said so at the time. He's gone on to win a Europa Conference League this season, just gone and played in the Premier League all season. There was an attitude issue there, but in terms of the player that we got, it was a good signing at the time. So I have so much confidence in the 49ers to get it right. They're not stupid.
Why do you think Kinnear left? Because like you look at it on paper, you go, he's moved to Everton, who, you know, they don't win trophies. Obviously, they've got a ground move. It's exciting. Do you think it's? I mean, you know, I'm trying to kind of figure out what the motivation is, almost from his point of view. Obviously, he's really well compensated at Leeds. I don't know if he's got a wage rise at Everton or what, but he was already one of the highest paid at Leeds. You know, I just wonder about that motivation. Not that it kind of gives you any kind of inkling into problems at Leeds or anything. I think if you look at Robbie Evans, and this is what I was going to come to as well, he's now, you know, managing director rather than CEO, and he's another Paraag guy, you know, going all the way back to the San Francisco 49ers. You know, he's his man. Do you think it's just a case of, look, Paraag, it was perfect for a transition between ownership groups, and now Paraag's been able to go, right, this is going to be my guy that's going to kind of take over this?
I think it's a really, really interesting question. I reckon, if I'm totally honest with you, I reckon that the plan was always 2 years for Angus Kinnear. I think he was the transition between the old ownership and the new ownership. I think he was kept around for a very good reason. I don't subscribe to this feeling and opinion that Angus is the the lowest of the low.
No,
I don't put him with Rads and Orta in, if I'm honest. I think he was a bit of a mouthpiece for them, and I think he kind of unfortunately got a little bit tarnished with the wrong brush. I think he's well respected within the game. He did a great job at Arsenal by all accounts, did a similar job at West Ham, then came and did the job at Leeds, and now he's got another big project, and I think there'll be a part of what he wants in this as well. You know, these people within these kind of roles within clubs, they play a part for a project and then tend to move on. And he's now got another project at a time where Everton actually are probably the most exciting Everton have been in the last 50 years. You know, they've actually got over all these issues that they've had over the last few years. They've got the brand new stadium coming. You know, they've got David Moyes back. They've been comfortably, you know, away from the relegation battle after Moyes took over this season, which hasn't been the case for the last few. I think it's a really good time to get involved with Everton if you're in and around the board level. So I just think it made sense for all parties, mate. But to answer your question, if it wasn't 2 years ago, I definitely think that it's pretty much been on the cards all of this season. I definitely believe. And I think since January, I'd be very shocked if Angus Kinnear had been anywhere near any sort of dealings for this year. I'd be very, very shocked. I think come January, gone. I think it'd have been out of it.
Yeah, indeed. Guys, if you watch along, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Lee, always enjoy your stuff. Cheers, mate. My class here, how does this data-driven recruitment work? Well, do you know, it's funny because apparently like the algorithm Brighton and Brentford use, and obviously those owners used to know each other in the betting world and all this and fell out massively, and they've got these special data-driven algorithms, so I guess nobody really knows. In terms of what we're doing, I have absolutely no idea. When I think database, I just think Football Manager.
Yeah.
And you're going on, it's like, oh, this guy's good at crossing, this guy's good at dribbling, this is his stats. I mean, I've no idea. Did you get any kind of glimpse into that, Jay, when you worked at the club?
Data analysts, just to start off, are at all football clubs. So, like, data being used is not an exclusive thing to one or two clubs. But basically what happens is in the clubs that base their recruitment solely on data, they let the data lead the decisions rather than, you know, Amma in at Manchester United saying, I really like this player, saying to a scout, what do you think about him? And then go, yeah, right, okay, let's sign him. Like, you know, they might then check the data second, right? Yeah. Like, what does the data say about this player? Whereas data-driven recruitment is the other way around. So they'll have a list of the top 10 players within number 10 role that have got, you know, specific statistics of putting the ball into a certain area of the pitch on a regular basis. They'll then break that down into, right, okay, how many times can he do it on the instep of his left foot and his right foot? You know what I mean? How many times can he do it on a cushioned first-time pass? How many times can you know, does he pick up areas of the pitch in this particular area? How many times, if it's a defender, how many times does he make a tackle with his right foot, his left foot? Like, they will finite dig into the statistic, and then they'll create a list. And these 10 players will be the top of that list. You know, the first 3 or 4 might be unattainable. That they might only be signing for Champions League players. But then when you get to for Champions League teams, sorry. But then once you get to 5, 6, and 7, you're starting to be in the potential market for the player that you want, and you will go based on that over everything else, regardless of the league that they're playing in, regardless of the team that they're coming from. And that's why you then see these random signings that pop out of nowhere. You know, because they fit into that profile. And then you might get the manager to watch some footage or a scout to watch some footage or whatever, and you make a decision based on that. And I think quite often something that gets overlooked in data-led recruitment is the character, the personal profile that gets built around recruitment. Let me tell you, that makes a massive, massive difference to whether a signing goes through or not. And that's why you usually find these players that sign for these clubs. Again, I look at Brentford with some of they're all workhorses. They work and work and work. And that's why they make such good signings. You know, that it's more that over the talent. So all of that kind of gets put into a pot, and then you come out with basically a decision to make.
How do you kind of get an idea of the character though? Like what's kind of goes on there? Is that just you pick up the phone and go, listen, tell me what Mbuemo's like? Is he a knob? No, he's a good lad, right? We'll sign.
I can only talk based on my experience. Obviously, my experience at Leeds was very much at an academy level, but it seemed to me as if it worked very similar to how it worked at first team level when I was at Stockport and other clubs as well. It is very much that. It is word of mouth, you know, and you will managers, certainly at like League Two level and below, they will take the word of somebody that they trust when they ring up and ask. They'll say, how's so-and-so in training? How does he turn up every day? What's he like on a match day? What's his family like? What are his motivations? Who are his friends outside of within football? Who does he know? These questions genuinely do get asked. So and they build up as, like, you don't always get it right, but you build it up as close to a profile as what you can, and then you make a decision. And it will happen at first team level. I'm telling you, it'll absolutely happen at first team level, at high level as well.
Brilliant. No, it's absolutely fascinating to listen to it, to be honest. Gavin, Blunt's used data for Tom Cannon. Exactly. Yeah. How much was that? $10 million or something?
Well, they used data for Tyrese Campbell as well. I've heard that being said a couple of times this season, and I know Sheffield United, we can all laugh at him now and whatnot, but Tyrese Campbell is a good example of the raw data probably saying more than the statistic of goals, because he's not a goal scoring striker as such, but he put them ahead in the playoff. He's had in the playoff final, he'd had a really good season as well, and that was based on the back of actually not scoring loads of goals previously. But the raw data behind that was it was getting into the right positions, and everything that they wanted to see was looking in the way that they wanted. So yeah, but Tom Cannon's a bit of a I don't know how he got the 2 moves that he got, to be honest, to the top of the Championship, but he got him nonetheless.
Good character, maybe that's what it was. Kind of the final thing I want to just touch on as well before we go is 49ers Rangers. That's done now. 49ers are in charge there, an investment hand of the 49ers. Paraag Marathe is vice chairman, so it's still thought to be that his main focus obviously is still going to be Leeds. Saw Talk Sport debate about this, and they were talking about who's got the upper hand here, who's the main focus, etc., etc. And it's going to be something that kind of rages on, because obviously the multi-club ownership model is something everyone goes on about. But I think in multi-club ownerships, you normally get like a real clear hierarchy, don't you? Normally it's like Chelsea and someone from the Dutch third league or something.
They're Strasbourg, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Strasbourg.
Whereas, Leeds and Rangers, historic clubs, massive, etc., etc. I mean, I have absolutely no concern about this at all. I couldn't, I think some people are thinking, oh my God, how is Paraag Marathe going to find enough time in a day to run 2 football clubs? But I don't think it's going to quite work out like that. Do you think this has any kind of impact on anything? I mean, is there anything with this that we should be interested in about it? I mean, it's is it sharing of data? Is there going to be something they can do with transfers? Is it going to be one's going to be a feeder club? I mean, what's going to happen here with this?
I doubt it. I just think it's just going to be the levels are not comparable, are they? Like, you maybe could loan 1 or 2 that are not going to be ready for Leeds that would then be able to do it at the top end of the SPL, but it's going to be minimal because take our examples right now, right? So you might have Charlie Crew who needs development, yeah, but he won't be ready for playing for Rangers. He needs to go to League One. But then if they're going to be ready to play for Rangers, they're probably going to be ready for our squad. So like Mateo Joseph, maybe as an example, do you loan him to Rangers? Maybe, but most of them would have a part to play, or they'd be worth selling. So I don't know whether anybody will fall into that. I don't think it changes anything, mate. I really, really don't. Maybe you see a little bit of PSR jiggery to move a bit of the money around to help Leeds out. I don't imagine it'd be the other way, because I don't think SPL have got the same restrictions. I don't think they have PSR. So I just don't see it, and I just like nobody mentions the fact that the 49ers have got other business interests in America. Paraag Marathe ain't just sat there adminning all day. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's got people doing all the work for him. He's just the face of the business who will make some big executive decisions. But he ain't doing all the decisions. Let me tell you, he's got somebody doing all that for him. So I really don't think it means anything. I also think, and again, me and Gavin just disagree all the time apparently, but I also don't think Russell Martin's a bad a bad appointment.
I don't either.
I think he makes a lot of sense. I think, Celtic still got Brendan Rodgers, right? They haven't they?
Yeah.
Like I think it's a potential real banana skin for Brendan Rodgers is Russell Martin going in there. I think Russell Martin will probably be more suited to a team that are going to completely dominate the league, which apart from Celtic, Rangers are going to do. So I actually think it makes a lot of sense. I know he gets scoffed at because of what he did with Southampton last year, but that's how these managers worked. It did work out for Vinny Company, didn't it? Getting that job and sticking to an ideology and all the rest of it. I think it makes quite a lot of sense.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see as well, like how much they invest in Rangers, because how much of their investors got in this group that have put into it. Who are they? Are they celebrities like Leeds have? It's going to be. I mean, it'll be fascinating to see, because you would think if they're as well run as we've been, I would fully expect them to really challenge Celtic. Really,
I think so.
Really kind of lay a glove on them a little bit. Because obviously, go on, mate.
I was just going to say you also don't need to throw the same level of money at it in Scotland, because the transfer fees that are required to improve the side up there are minimal in comparison to a Premier League side. So I agree with you. Yeah. I think they will.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll. Oh yeah, go on, mate.
Just before you, just a couple of comments that I did want to. I wanted to ask you on one of them as well. This one, Michael, Lafie was part of the term for the deal. Was a fee was already agreed if they got promoted. So upon promotion, it was agreed that I think it was 15 million quid. Whereas Manor Solomon, we couldn't get an agreement in place with Spurs to have a mandatory fee should we get promoted. Nor did we probably want one at the time, because we didn't know how fit he was going to be, how good he was going to be. And for them, it made sense letting him have a season of success under his belt so they could charge more. So the circumstances are a little bit different. I also don't think Enzo Lafie is at all ready for the Premier League. I think he'll get absolutely mullered in the Premier League, if I'm honest. And then the other one that I wanted to just bring up, and I wanted to fire this at you, was this one from Skip earlier on, and hopefully Skip's still around. But it's okay. How many first team players do you think the club will get in, and how many do you think we need? So I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, when we did our video, we said there was 5 first team starters. I think it was Rodon, Ampadu, Tanaka, I think Bogle. We said
Bogle, yeah.
How many is that? 4.
I think we said Dan James as well.
We keep Solomon possibly.
I think we said Dan James as well, didn't we?
Yeah. So not many. So for me, it's you need 5, 6 first team starters. Now, obviously, that's going to mean that there's going to have to be some damn good recruitment there, and you're going to have to pull off maybe a couple of Tanaka-esque deals where it's low value, but you're getting a really top player. Whether we can get that done, I'm not sure. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to have the perfect squad going into the Premier League, but I don't know. I'm just excited. I really think we're going to recruit really well. I'm positive we're going to recruit so well. And I just hope that we actually do. But yeah, I mean, I even thought with Peru, maybe the striker situation fascinates me actually, because we're kind of overloaded in one sense, and it's kind of difficult in a couple of situations. Because you look at someone like Bamford, I think Bamford's going to stay. I think Bamford's going to stay. I think Joseph is probably the only one that you're going to probably say is most likely to exit. I think Peru stays absolutely. Yeah, he might even cut it at the Premier League level. You got Harry Gray, who obviously is this mercurial talent. He might have a little bit of impact here and there. You never know. We've seen, wonder kids before, haven't we? At ridiculously young ages, have an impact. So we're kind of there. I mean, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, striker for me, I've got to admit, when I'm thinking of signings now, I'm not really looking at striker, and I suppose I should be really, but I don't know. What do you think, Jess?
I'm smirking because I just pick on Gavin all the time, but Gavin's just backed it up with this, and I just think it's funny because he was like, we're going to get relegated if we sign James Milner, we're going to get relegated if we sign Calvin Phillips, and then he's saying that we need 3 as a minimum and probably 3 more. I mean, that's only 6, and that only gives us a starting 11. I think it's closer to like 10. I think
you're looking at the whole kind of bench needs.
I'm not. I'm not saying that we need 10 new first team 11 players, but I think we need 10 players across the squad to make this squad competitive enough to stay in the league, and that will include some that are going to be out and out starters right from day one, and displace some of these players, whether that is Joe Pro, Brendan Aronson, Ilya Gruev, who might start games, Pascal Stroik, obviously the keeper, like I'm cutting through that spine straight away. Junior Thurpo is going to need replacing. There's work to do, I think. And then you're talking about the players that can come in and displace. So I'm talking about then on the periphery of starting 11 that are hopefully going to be able to come in and actually earn a starting 11 place. And then you also need to sign good enough backup options. James Milner. I'm talking coming in and maybe starting 10 to 15 games and coming off the bench to do a job. Ben Mees, Decore. I don't think we'll get Decore too much money, but you get the point that I'm making, like them players that are in and around. It's not about having quantity for the sake of having quantity, but you need a different level of backup quality, because some of the backup quality that we've got in the Championship isn't going to be good enough. It just isn't going to be good enough. So I think it's a really, really interesting one. But I would say it's around 10 for the full squad. Once you start picking into it, Brownie, I mean,
tricky into it.
I think we will keep Bamford. I think Bamford's a really interesting kind of perennial conversation to have, and I think he will be in and around the squad. I think he'll see out the last year of his deal. And fair, bit of experience, a player that's happy to play, maybe third choice. I'm not really that bothered, because I think we'll sign another number 9 that will probably displace Perraud for 15 or 20 games. I think they'll fight it out. Perraud can play the 10. I think we'll sign a 10. I think we'll sign a midfielder. I think we'll sign a centre-back, a keeper, a left-back. And then before you know it, I've gone through half the squad. So
it's a lot of work to do, isn't it, that?
A lot, mate. There's a lot. I think we'll see. I think it's going to be a really, really tasty window, not just at Leeds, but across the division. Me and Lou were talking about it earlier, and I think you're going to see a lot of business going on. I mean, we've already seen a lot, and the window's only been open 2 days. Delap got confirmed. I think it was yesterday. Cunha's confirmed. That these deals are already popping off. So the Premier League is going to look very different in 6 to 8 weeks' time when the season starts.
And you never know. Leeds might do something before the 10th. You never know. They could surprise us. 49ers have done it before, haven't they? Where all of a sudden it's they drop something in. Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating. Actually, it's going to be
exciting.
I'm just glad it's not Championship recruitment. At least God. I could have done another year of that crap.
I couldn't even imagine having this conversation with you right now if we were having it about Championship.
We wouldn't have done a show for 2 months.
The world would look very different.
About the bloody Championship. Forget that.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Sorry, mate. Yeah, go on.
No, you first. No,
I was going to say, do you know, it's the little stuff. It's the little things as well when you're back in the Premier League. Like today, dropped my kid off at school and walking back here with Sticker Podcast on YouTube. So I'm scrolling, I had the new Overlap fan debate on. So I'll just give that a listen. And it was like, we got Simon from the Kaiser Chiefs. He's going to talk about Leeds United. And I was like, yes, we're in the big time conversations again. We're on the Overlap. We're newsworthy again. Do you know what I mean? All the podcasts I listen to, we're back.
It always cracks me up when I see your Overlap TikTok pop up. If you don't follow Brownie on TikTok, go and follow him, because he's quite amusing. The Overlap one just always, because it's so true. So true.
Pissing about for 10 minutes.
This comment from Gavin.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't personally see Sunderland as being of a threat. I know that they've got money to spend, but they really should finish 20th. And if they're finishing in front of us and we're going down as a consequence, that's on us, not on Sunderland, in my opinion. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but they should be nowhere near it, really. I know Lou seems to think that they could surprise a few. I think they might early doors, but the young nature of that side really should get overridden, and they won't be able to pull the recruitment that Leeds Burnley and other teams down the bottom should be able to pull. But this signing in particular, I think, is mental. I mean, I think Sunderland have got a laugh on their hands here, because I
30 million or something.
25 rising to 30. Yeah, I don't even think he's any good. I think he's a bog standard average Championship centre midfielder that's got the surname of Bellingham. That's what I think. And
what it seems to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll come to prove me wrong. Dortmund, have not just signed him because of the Bellingham. I don't think that. They will have used data and scouts and all the rest of it, but I don't understand this signing at all.
No, it does seem absolutely bizarre, doesn't it? He got like young player of the season and stuff, doesn't he? The hype machine's there about him, isn't it? As well,
yeah.
He's got that kind of media kind of bandwagon behind him as well, hasn't he? Which seems to kind of magnify it as well. But yeah, I mean, it's it's going to allow them to do some more business, though, isn't it? Potentially, an improvement on him. More than likely, actually, they might be able to get it. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, because it is such a young squad. They're losing a couple of young players straight off the bat, but they've got scope to really chuck some money at it, I guess.
I'll tell you a ready-made replacement for him who would really help them: Jordan Henderson.
Well, yeah, that was one of the ones that was linked, wasn't it? I mean, old, Sunderland, old boy from the area, fan, everything. I mean, it's like, it'd just be perfect, wouldn't it? The leadership, and just, that'd be one signing where I go, I hope they don't do that, because I'd be a little bit intimidated by that. I'm not going to lie, I'd be thinking that's kind of, what a Milner would be for us, wouldn't it? That
makes
kind
a lot of sense.
Role model. Yeah. I mean, someone like that, that would be pretty special for them. Good stuff. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. But thank you so much. It's been an absolutely fascinating debate. We'll be back next week for some more Leeds United latest. Please do follow us on all socials. We've got stuff going out all over the place: TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Make sure you're subscribing and liking everything. It really does help and support the channel as well. Like I say, myself and Jason will be back next week. So enjoy the rest of your week. And you never know, we might be back on sooner if Leeds do a bit of business as well. We shall wait and see. But I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much.
Thank you, mate.
And we will see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.